Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really powerful idea from a devotional text by David F. Nwafulu. It's all about the search for a deep, lasting peace through faith. We're going to unpack how the author connects those inner anxieties we all feel to a specific spiritual solution. You know, the devotional kicks off with a question that I think hits home for a lot of us. It's that lingering feeling of anxiety, that kind of unrest that you just can't quite put your finger on. The author suggests this isn't just random stress, but it's actually the doorway to a much deeper spiritual conversation. So this is where the core message really starts to build. The author reframes our whole quest for peace. They argue that what we might think of as just a mental health goal is actually a fundamental spiritual need. It's a subtle shift for sure, but a really important one. So, according to the author, this anxiety, it's not just emotional static. It's presented as a symptom of something much, much deeper, an issue that the text defines using a very specific theological framework. Okay, so what is that deeper issue? Well, the text calls it a spiritual separation from a creator, a barrier that it identifies with the theological concept of sin. And this is a really crucial definition from the text. Sin isn't framed as just, a list of bad things you did. Instead, it's defined as a fundamental state of separation. And it's this barrier that is the direct source of that fear, guilt, and unrest we were just talking about. And to really drive this point home, the author presents this really stark contrast. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got a life defined by separation, and that leads to fear and guilt. But on the other, you have a life of reconciliation that brings assurance, confidence, and what the text calls a divine, lasting peace. So if separation is the problem, the text offers a really clear solution: reconciliation. The big question then is, how is that spiritual bridge actually built? And here it is. This one verse from the Christian Bible is basically the foundation for the entire argument. This single sentence lays out the core mechanism for how you get from separation to peace. It's something called justification by faith. The text is super clear about this. It's not about trying to earn peace through a bunch of good deeds or personal effort. It's about receiving it through faith. The author even points to the biblical figure of Abraham as a prime example, someone whose entire relationship with God was based on trusting in promises, not just on his own actions. Okay, so what happens next? According to the devotional, once this reconciliation takes place, it's not just some abstract idea. It has profound, practical, real-world effects on a person's everyday life. And here you can see the claimed outcomes. The key takeaway here is that this peace isn't supposed to be temporary or something that depends on your circumstances. The author argues it's a firm foundation, rooted in that restored relationship that leads to real confidence, stability, and even a greater ability to forgive others. Now, the source material doesn't just explain this concept as a theory and then leave you hanging. It provides really clear, actionable steps for individuals who read it and want to experience this reconciliation for themselves. The author lays out a very specific prayer of salvation. It's essentially a 4-step process. You've got acknowledging and believing, which are internal, then moving to an outward verbal confession, and finally making a commitment to a new way of life. Each step kind of builds on the one before it to make that reconciliation official. After outlining that personal path to salvation, the devotional kind of zooms out to a much bigger communal mission. The author invites readers to join his ministry's goal of reaching 500 million people, and they offer different ways to get involved, whether that's as a prayer partner, a volunteer, or through financial support. And a huge part of fostering this global community is synchronized prayer. I mean, just look at this coordinated schedule. The whole idea is to create a continuous, 24-hour chain of prayer that circles the globe, connecting followers across all these different time zones. And, to support this whole global effort, the ministry uses a ton of different digital tools. We're talking everything from WhatsApp and Telegram for direct messaging, all the way to a full suite of social media, including LinkedIn and even TikTok, to build and keep their online community going strong. So to wrap it all up, this devotional offers a complete framework. It starts with that universal feeling of anxiety, gives it a spiritual diagnosis, and then lays out a very specific path to what it calls divine peace. It's really a journey from inner turmoil to reconciliation. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. In a world that feels like it's full of constant anxiety, what does that kind of foundation, that kind of peace truly mean?